Yeah, I mean, I managed to push back the start time, so just in the nick of time, you
Absence
get
makes
like
the heart grow fonder,
yeah,
Mr. O'Connor.
you get like 10 minutes or something. Anyways, brother, how you been?
I'm good. Yourself?
Geez, man, I do miss hanging out with you. Like we gotta get together more. Like
Well, I
you're
mean,
one of my favorite like fellow New York State libertarians. Like you're one of
well,
my favorites, bro.
right back at you, buddy.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
not hard to find though, just for the record.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, you know, hey, Shelly's out there. Hey, Shelly, good evening. Yeah, no, I'm not. Like I live on a lake, man. You should come down. We'll go boating this summer. You know what I mean? Like it'll be cool.
All right.
I've had other libertarians here. Cody's been to my house a couple times. I had what's her name out on my boat? Karen Thompson. She stopped by. She grabs a place up here on the lake and comes up for like it's big baseball around here.
Are you a golfer?
I I I used to be a golfer till I tore my
Oh,
rotator cuff.
oh yeah. I feel like
But
I may have done that to myself. I'm nursing a shoulder thing that
yeah,
I go to a massage weekly, which typically for the last 3.5 years it's been a plantar fasciitis regimen, which is basically so me just writhing in pain on a table for
yeah,
an hour. But
nice. That's
right now my shoulder is really messed up, and I feel it might be a rotator cuff, and I can't really figure out what I did. I feel like it's just a sleeping injury because I don't
I
do anything.
well, I had my I went. All right, so I did the boating thing, got wiped out on a tube. I'm too old to be like, yeah, send it, woo, but I do it anyway, and I got wrecked. So about 2 months later, my shoulder was feeling pretty good. I took my kid out golfing. First swing of the club, my shoulder pops and cracks, and I just was like, and like I'm way better golfer than he is, like, and and he's like, "Wow, Dad, this is really bad," and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever," you
I
know.
was just I was gonna see if I could pull some strings to get us on the Otsa Saga there, whatever that crazy one
Mm,
down in there in Cooperstown.
it's a great course. I played it a couple times. You occasionally can get like connected where you can get on for like $60, $70. It's
I heard
worth
it's
it.
nice. I know, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've just driven by it, so
Yeah. All right, Shelly is awake and ready to be. Oh, Patty's awake and ready to be entertained. Shelly's out there.
listen, I just had my organic energy drink, so
Nice.
at 9:15 at night, so
I'm drinking my MK Ultra. That's the regular show fluid. So look, we're gonna talk about uh did the Rogan Tucker thing. Well, you and I are gonna do some pop culture stuff, right?
whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
I I I have been known to hold a crowd with my nonsense, so put
I love it.
take me anywhere you wanna go.
All right, here we go, man. I'm gonna do the we gotta do we'll do the radio show so everybody knows out there that's listened before. It's a 20-minute segment, then we'll do a little bit of crosstalk. Then we do a 15-minute segment, we'll do a little bit of crosstalk, another 15-minute segment, and then we can hang out, answer questions, stuff like that. Whatever you guys want to do. We generally go for about an hour and a half. So
Yeah, I have no
um,
place to be.
all right, cool.
I have an NBA game that starts I think at like 10:30 that I'll be watching to completion. So
All
that'll
right.
well
All right.
not really
Well,
watch, but I'll make sure to be awake when it ends.
all right, here we
Check out
go.
my DraftKings.
There you go.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, guys. Once again, it's Tim O'Connor, the Freedom Variant, your host for today. Normally, I get the conspiracy theorist chair, but yet again, I have the great honor to bring on a fellow conspiracy theorist who I'm probably going to have to reel in. Guys, you who have listened to the show, who have watched the show, you guys out there in YouTube land and Twitter land know that Kevin, like he reels me in every once in a while. I get out there. So as weird as this is going to be, Shawn, I am going to be the guy reeling you in probably.
No,
But look,
no breaks, Mr. O'Connor. We have no breaks. Here we go.
all right. So
Let's
look,
go full Bobby Kennedy. You ready?
we hang on. I want to introduce you guys. Like, all right, this is Shawn Hannon. He is the host of Sports Clicks and Politics, a podcast that goes out on Rumble, goes out. He sends out invites on
We're banned on YouTube.
band. That's a good sign.
Well,
My people will like that.
Banned is probably strong. We've had so many episodes removed that we no longer posted on there because why bother? They're still removing them from like 4 years ago. Like, what the hell happened here? But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right, man.
My intro.
Yeah, so you're now the current vice chair of the Onondaga Libertarian Party?
I'm nothing. I'm unaffiliated. I'm unaffiliated. Well, unaffiliated, but I am no official capacity within the party.
All right. So you're just
I'm just a loudmouth bartender.
Perfect. Well, yeah, which is actually that's my history, bro. Like I
know.
Up
I'm sure you served me back at Tucker's.
Yeah, Tucker's and Rosie O'Grady's. It was a good time. I loved Syracuse, man. I miss it. It was a great town. So look, you and I are going to delve into some pop culture tonight, right?
P. Diddy?
Well, what? P. Diddy, the latest Jeffrey Epstein scandal is breaking, and his name is P. Diddy, I know is, right?
I'm so uncultured in that regard. Well, unhip, I guess, is probably a better. So, like, all the players in that story are all new to me, so it's hard for me to connect the dots as easy as the politics, the Epstein version. So, like, I have to call lifelines in the hip hop days of the 90s because I really don't know who P. Diddy is. I know the names, but I don't really.
Right.
When they're talking about, oh, this guy and this girl and this one, I'm like, I just don't know him. So, but it is salacious and juicy for sure.
Yeah, and
look, a lot of parallels, as you point out, to the Epstein stuff, where there's a seemingly a multi-level marketing aspect to the whole operation, where you're kind of like, hey, if you're pretty good at this, and maybe you get good at that, and then we kind of work it back, and I'll get all this or whatever. Yeah, but yeah.
I've never heard it described as multi-level marketing before.
That's what you brought me on here for, right?
That's a fantastic euphemism for what it looks like is going on, brother. Like it is wild. Yeah. So P. Diddy's pretty interesting story, but like you, I'm not like hip to the hop. Let's say, right? No. Like I'm not down with.
Yeah,
that.
Like I couldn't. No. But Snoop Dogg and me go way back, I guess, because of the weed, but.
Yeah, I mean, I was Beastie Boys, Run DMC.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Heavy metal cult of personality kind of guy. Like they did a little bit of rapping too.
Yeah, my hip hop days ended with like KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions and EPMD, and so I didn't really get into the Tupac, Biggie, any of that. I was already out. I'd already checked out by then.
So yeah,
my breakdancing days were over.
Good. Thank God for that, like thank God for that.
I never tore a rotator cuff breakdancing, and I was doing all kind of dumb stuff. So
perfect. So look, one of the big news making events of the last week, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson had a sit down, and like they kind of just, they kind of went wild, right? They went literally.
Wouldn't you like to know what they were talking about before they actually hit record button? Because it's all recorded, but because they almost never, like, Joe Rogan's never just like, hey, and welcome to the show. We have, like, they're already in a conversation, and then they just decide where to start it, right? So, like, I would always really like to know what's going on before that stuff, because there's probably some really good stuff there.
Could you imagine? Like,
because what was on the show was great. Like, can you imagine what was going on before?
So what of the show stuck out like the most to you? There were several impactful kind of statements, and I was blown away by some of it. I was just like, one road I want to travel down is that when we look at what goes on in modern politics, right, and we see that our representatives aren't actually representing us; they're representing this system, this state, this. Basically, right now, it looks like they're representing a war machine. They're representing Keynesian economics, growing the economy through funding wars overseas kind of stuff. And there seems to be a populist sentiment against it. And yet here we are sending $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to Israel, or $30 billion to Israel, and funding a lot of other military operations. I felt like they kind of covered one of the possible scenarios as to why that happens. What do you think?
And sure. And, when during that episode, he was talking about, asserting that if that's the scenario, and I think I tend to agree with what you laid out there, like, we don't ever live in a democracy if, as I think he said something like, if 70% of the people don't want something, but we get it anyway. So, listen, we don't live in a representative government, so
I don't know what's going on. Like, I Kevin and I often debate whether it's malice or incompetence, and I come down on the side that it looks like malice, that they're filling their campaign coffers, that they're selling things for the military industrial complex. But Tucker dropped a bombshell, right? A guy that would allegedly or purportedly be more in the know than perhaps Shawn Hannon and Tim O'Connor, but he
What are
dropped
you
a
trying?
bombshell.
What are you trying to say?
Well,
We're not
that-
read into things.
we're not read into things, but that Tucker may be read into things, right?
Well, I mean, he definitely has some sources that he claims to be well connected, I guess, and maybe still on the inside. So, yes,
Yeah.
his sources are better than mine. I mean,
Arguably better than mine, but I get some interesting sources, especially on local stuff. But what Tucker said, and it's something that we've heard put out there, that the deep state, Chuck Schumer himself warned Donald Trump about the deep state taking him out. Like this is Tucker kind of laid it out there. Like he said, these guys are compromised. They're afraid of the deep state. They're absolutely terrified of the possibility that they're going to wake up one day.
well, think of the fights Tucker's picking here. So, right, so we already know during his show he's been very outwardly talking about the JFK stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Basically asserting that the CIA did it, right? And
Yeah.
so, and we'll get into the part where he mentioned he mentioned Nixon right there
Yeah.
as well, and cites the 5 intelligence agencies and one quote unquote patsy who broke into the Watergate guy. Kind of reminds me of Michigan governor kidnapping a little bit there, where maybe looking at the whole Nixon as a orchestrated takedown is not so crazy anymore in light of what happened with the previous president here in our situation, which looks like he was spied on while he was running for office. So
I don't.
A lot of people think that the country was lost back in 1963, and it might be hard to argue.
It would be hard to argue on an absolute level that the government isn't in business to serve itself. Like that would be that politicians are filling their campaign coffers by doing things and manufacturing. Let's call it manufacturing consent. That's a popular term libertarians like to use. That's a popular term that liberals like to use. When you get out there and you say, hey, what we need to do is fund wars overseas, and then you manufacture the consent for that, you convince the people, that your constituents, that this is a good idea. That to me is where we're at, right? And it could have been 63. It could have been before that.
That's just an obvious tell. Is 63,
right?
And now, like I said, when you couple that with Nixon, which happened, a small handful of years later, where it's Tucker reminds you of things of like where, oh yeah, I forgot that Spiro Agnew got ran out on tax evasion charges, and then they got to put in their own guy Gerald Ford, and then oh look, they got to take him out, and oh look, all of a sudden our guy's in charge. Weird how that happens. I'm just saying. So you pile these things on top of each other, and you're like, okay, well, what's the keep it simple, stupid argument here? It's like, okay, well, clearly it looks like the intelligence agencies have overtaken the government. Nobody is willing to push back against them, as you point out with Chuck Schumer, and maybe Donald Trump is experiencing those ramifications as we speak, even though I have plenty of critique for that guy these days. But the idea that our politicians are controlled by something other than constituents, what input and feedback is clearly evident.
It is clearly evident. The fact remains too that they can even just play the odds, right? Like there's something like a 20% or less approval rating of our House of Representatives and our people in the Senate, right?
I want to meet the 20%.
I know, right? But they still, Sean, get reelected at something like a 92% rate. Like, so they can play the odds there. There's always
the local guy goes and shakes their hand, or she goes out and shakes their hand, and they get like, oh, well, it's not my person. It's not my Congress critter. Right. It's all the other ones.
And the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And generally, if you're in a left-leaning blue blue area, you don't want to take a look at the Republican challenger. And if you live in a right-leaning red area, you're not going to take a look at the blue challenger. And
We've
look,
been programmed not to take a look.
it's
They're
amazing.
evil.
The lesser of two evils, but they're still evil.
But the other side, they tend, there is some, but and I'm going to paint with a broad brush here, but
Sure.
the majority of political leanings are, I don't want to be labeled the other thing. It's not, I'm like so pro this or that. It's like, oh no, I can't be a libtard or a Trump-tard. I got to be a whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so you gotta, anything that even comes close to that, you have to run away with and be like, I can't be associated with that. So you got to kind of make it known that you're not the opposite side. And it's not necessarily, again, that you're for anything. And I'm not saying that you're not for anything. These people are for things, but the more pressure comes from not being labeled the other side, I guess.
Yeah. Look, I think to point at something specific that I think Joe and Tucker were talking about, right? And
aliens.
Well, no, hang on. We can do the aliens. Don't worry about that. We'll get there. But like they were talking about how when it came down to the vote, Thomas Massey pointed this out. The Speaker of the House is not obligated to vote, right? So Mike Johnson, the guy
MAGA Mike Johnson
didn't even have to vote, and then did in fact vote to make sure that the FISA 702, the warrantless spying program that was used to flip Carter Page, and like because he was associated with Trump, allowed the government to spy on Trump. This isn't even a debate anymore. Like he was spied on by the Barack Obama administration. This isn't like a joke. This is how they did it, right?
Yeah.
This is what they did.
Yeah, if we set the premise up, and obviously, as you know, maybe I'm spoiling the conclusion here. He ended up voting and being the deciding vote to make sure that it didn't pass. And this guy had been all along anti-FISA, right? Like his whole history in Congress had been, hey, we're not doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. Hey, we shouldn't do this, until the exact moment where you need to actually have a spine. He turns into a jellyfish and just casts the vote and then sells us all out. And then it gets worse.
It just keeps getting worse. And look, he made some subsequent statements that we all know are malarkey, right? He said, look, yeah, we know there's problems with the FISA 702. We know that this has been used to spy on American citizens, but we can fix those problems. And then Eye Patch McCain, that guy from Texas, Dan Crenshaw, right? He comes out and is like, this is the only way to stop the fentanyl from being imported into our country. This is the only way we can monitor those cartels.
He's not a serious person, that dude. But go ahead. Sorry.
He's a serious stock trader, bro. He's very successful.
Aren't they all?
Like wildly wild. Well, he's like number 2 to Nancy Pelosi. You know, like it's just
weird.
Wild what's going on with this stuff.
Weird. The naturals. I mean, it's like a nexus of stock. It's like they just get charts fed to them. You know, they're just all experts at reading charts, knowing to buy and sell.
Yeah, that's what it is. It has nothing to do with legislation in front of their committees that they're privy to, that they can trade stocks in.
Stop,
that is
Mr.
completely
O'Connor.
legal. It's completely legal. If like, do you remember when Martha Stewart went to jail? Our representatives are doing the same things she did every single day, making decisions on picking stocks, and they put her in jail for it. Like, I don't even know why.
You're being nice.
I know. I know.
Because they do way worse than what she did.
I'm just trading in a readily observable facts that I can't get in trouble for.
Right. So no, it's all us.
My beliefs are deeper than that. I do want to take Tucker to task, though, Sean. I hope you don't mind. Well,
let me see if I can stand for Tucker.
Well, at some point, he's made some sort of comment like that Richard Nixon was some sort of one of the greatest presidents, and that's why they had to take him out.
So I don't think he said he was the greatest president. He said he was the most popular president. I mean, listen, he extrapolated that out by saying that he had the most votes ever recorded in a presidential race, right? So he was the most popular president. But all the other stuff, as we pointed out, I kind of echoed some of those sentiments already here, speak for themselves, right? Like whether or not, Richard Nixon was a stand-up guy, I don't think so, but like,
I mean, I'm just saying he started the EPA.
He was clearly taken out.
He started the EPA. He started the war on drugs.
Oh no, he's not somebody I would have voted for. But and neither was Trump, but they took him out.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
I actually, right. That part I'm not arguing with. I'm actually just trying to pick a fight with Tucker.
I mean, I guess you'd rather be Trump and Nixon than JFK if you're going to get taken out.
Fair enough. I mean, that's brother. That is a good point, man. Really, that is a solid.
That's how you get.
Point.
That's how you get funding for Ukraine.
$60 billion, man.
Yeah,
they put on a show. They put on a show.
Trump okayed all that.
He's all well, there you go, guys.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things where libertarians kind of divest themselves from everyone else. It's like, yeah, like your guy sucks and Trump sucked too. Like he did a lot of bad things. He's still doing a lot of weird things. He's like, hey, yeah, the FBI used, their influence to spy on me and they're out to get me. But you know what I'm going to do? Build him a brand new, big, huge, beautiful Trump style building. And it's like, what kind of campaign nonsense is that? You got a libertarian going, you know what we should do? Shut down the CIA, shut down the FBI. Even Vivek Ramaswamy, who was actually very appealing to me, was like, we are cutting these agencies in half. We're getting rid of some of them. And that is the bottom line. Like that was appealing. That was an appealing kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I guess I just want to drive home the point that Trump met with Mike Johnson on Friday before they voted, talked about who knows what. I mean, do you think they discussed this Ukraine foreign aid package? Of course they did. Sure. And then they go and vote on Saturday. Mike Johnson comes out and says that Trump was instrumental in helping him pass this, orchestrated the loan part of the nonsense of this fake loan aspect of the bill. And then
I love that. Yeah.
And then after the vote, Lindsey Graham comes out and thanks Trump again for like it wouldn't have he says something like it wouldn't have happened without Trump's help. And then all of Trump media goes crickets.
He whipped.
I forgot that I had crickets on the mic.
Perfect, man. No, Trump.
I'm glad I hit the right button because they're not labeled.
Yeah, that was a good guess. You did rather well there. Yeah, so Trump whipped support for the Ukraine bill.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. Bipartisanship. The glorious bipartisanship that we all want to love and adore. But yeah,
they bipartisan
knocking us out again.
They bipartisanship us so freaking hard. It's amazing.
Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah. So that was my big complaint. Now the other thing they got into was like UFOs.
Yeah, they started with UFOs, but actually I thought I guess the gist of their conversation was more of not a debate. Like none of this stuff was really a debate. It's kind of just a back and forth conversation or whatever. But they were talking about how to describe UFOs, right? Or entities that would be coming from UFOs. Are they spiritual beings, supernatural, aliens, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or is this just high end tech, stuff from that we're just not aware of yet from the from governments or wherever. So
So look, hang on. I piqued everybody's interest. We're coming up on a pretty hard break, Shawn. So we're going to come back and talk a little bit about UFOs, and then I'm going to hit you with some new stuff that I've been kind of checking out. So I want to thank the WYSL audience. I want to thank my buddy Shawn Hannon for joining me, guys. This is a great show. We are going to be right back. All right, man, that was a great way to start the show. Let's check out the comments, man. This is awesome. All right, Patty put on her tinfoil tiara for us. No doubt. Oh, Shelly's talking about some of her golf experiences. Legacy Zach. I did a show with Legacy a couple of weeks ago. She'll be coming out on YouTube. 5 of us got together and we expressed, our strong critique of the system, our strong critique of the government. We had a good time. The CIA and the FBI fight each other with proxies in Syria. Just remember that. Yeah. I'm against war, but if we need to go to war, we should at least, Shelley's saying out there in YouTube land, I'm against war, but if we need to go to war, we should at least get congressional approval.
Because then you can hold people accountable.
Correct. And it's amazing to me that we're just continuously operating under one emergency declaration after the next, and we've been operating under this emergency declaration that authorizes presidential use of power, military power
for our safety.
overseas.
It's for our safety.
Is it though? Because I don't feel safer. Like, I do think that the U.S. is pretty safe comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that.
I am, and again, I say this. I want to say this regularly. Like, I do think we're blessed with a certain amount of ability here, still, even though it's under threat. Right, like our First Amendment is under threat. Hate speech and the punitive stuff and what they're going to classify as hate speech, how they're moving in that direction is very terrifying. But we're still right now able to have these conversations without too much fear of repercussion. You get kicked off YouTube.
You get kicked off YouTube.
Yeah, but then there's Rumble, right? Like people are
That's
going
what I said,
Rumble like crazy.
Well, so YouTube was the second iteration of the show because first I started on Facebook, but then right around election time 2020, I couldn't post events, I couldn't join events, I couldn't use Facebook, so I couldn't. And I was doing all the show. That's all I was doing was streaming it live on Facebook. So I got like 30 episodes in, had to stop, go to YouTube, did like 100 episodes there, had to stop. Now I'm on Rumble. I don't know. We're like at episode 158 or something. But
yeah,
all my interviews with Kevin McKernan, the molecular biologist who was worked for the Human Genome Project, and was instrumental in kind of shedding some light on some of the testing irregularities during COVID and whatnot. So
I watched that stuff. That was good stuff.
Yeah, all removed from YouTube.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, just a scientist telling you what he had found that later became mainstream news, right? Like the news cycle eventually picked up on what he was saying, and it was real, right? Like that
because he was kind of like showing he outlined how PCR could be used to show to create the with COVID or of COVID, right? Like it was a way of showing, hey, this test does not do what everybody thinks it does. It doesn't identify illness. It identifies whether or not the person ever had this piece of genome in their system, right? It could have been from months ago, and I think they had up to like 90 days where they're like, oh, they're still finding stuff that, hey, these people had already recovered, basically, and they were like, then hadn't recovered for months, and then testing quote unquote positive, and then having to isolate, and then all their friends having to isolate and test and whatever, and then it was the quote unquote case demic, right? And so because PCR is an instrument used in molecular biology where he's also the guy who did the cannabis genome project, right? So like he basically outlined and got and created and published the full cannabis genome, right? And he's like the chief technical officer of his company, or chief science officer, sorry.
Well, he's like a real scientist, first of all, like
no, he worked with freaking Francis Collins at the Human Genome Project. He's legit.
Yeah.
I don't know why he said yes to my show.
Well,
3 times.
Well, first of all, you're a great host. Your show is fun. Ben is witty and wild, and you guys do a good job. So I think,
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Mondays is when you've been doing it, right?
I flipped Ben. Yeah. I flipped Ben into a conspiracy theorist.
I do it from
some of the premise of the original part of our show was going to be that I was going to, push the envelope and he was going to reel me back in, right? But like at some point during COVID, he completely flipped and snapped, and a bunch of people mentioned it to me, and they're like, "It's flipped. Ben's no longer the guy pulling you back. You're the one pulling him back." And I was like, "Oh no."
Oh no!
But that's what 2020 did to a lot of people, I think.
It had to, right? I think we should go back in about 15 seconds, and I think we should talk about UFOs a little bit. What do you think?
Sure.
All right. All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. Once again, I am your host for the day, Tim O'Connor, the Freedom Variant, joined. I got another real conspiracy theorist. But guys, like, look, we use this, we talk about conspiracy theorists. We're talking about real conspiracies that are making the news, that 2 years ago, a year ago, people would have thought you were crazy. So thanks to the WSL audience for giving us a platform. Thanks to my buddy Shawn Hannon. Before the break, we were talking about UFOs, and now we're going to kind of dive deep because Tucker and Joe shined a light on them. We Kevin and I have talked about the whole Five Eyes project, UAPs, UFOs on this show. We've done a couple of segments on them. It seems like they're making the news. I'm like, it's a freaking psyop to distract us from the war in Ukraine, but also maybe it's not. Like, so what do you think?
I don't think UFOs are real.
No, really?
I,
Oh my
don't-
God,
I used to think they were real up until the government was like, yeah, there's UFOs. And I'm like, I don't believe it.
I went. No,
I don't
Yep.
believe it.
Yep.
Now I just think that they're just basically high tech. Like I think there are phenomena, and it's interesting that they changed from flying objects to aerial phenomenon. I don't know if I should be reading into that too much because
No,
of
because
my
they
tinfoil
find
hat's
them.
too tight, but
No, it's
I
not.
feel like it's
I can tell you
they're
why.
not flying, right?
They'll
So
they find them under the ocean too.
right,
Like
right.
they're machines moving incredibly fast, like beyond the realm of possibility, as we understand it.
Yeah. So I have always just mathematically believed that had to be aliens because the universe was so big. There were so many, galaxies and solar systems and planets, and like it was just infinite, and like this mathematically there just had to be some other life. And on top of that, to think that we were the very first life in the whole thing would mean that we were the most advanced, because if not, then somebody else could be a billion years more advanced than we are in theory, right? So
Right.
I had always just assumed that, okay, eventually, yes, there's life here. And then under the idea that the universe was so big that there was just no way, how could they get there with our understanding of physics, right? So that was always kind of the rub.
Yeah.
No, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so now when the government's like, yeah, they're here. And I'm like, wait a minute. Bad source, first of all, right?
Yeah,
Getting it from the
worst
government.
source ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, let me figure this out. Like, can I trust the government? No. So maybe the government is hiding from us, from it, what they have, knowledge that they have, technology that they have. Maybe you've heard the adage of the government's 50 years ahead of us. Yeah, I bet they're like 300 years ahead of us. Like, I don't think it's 50 years. Like, in some of that technology, if you're 50 years ahead, hypothetically, like, it's going to extrapolate faster as you get out, because the technology is going to build on itself quicker and quicker and accelerate away. So even if maybe in the 50s it was 50 years in advance, fast forward whatever 70 years later, I mean, it's probably 300 to 500 years in advance of what it's hard to put those in real terms and numbers and years, because obviously none of us lived that long. But like, right. my point is that they're not telling us everything. This is a great cover, great distraction, and it can serve the purpose again as keeping us look at the shiny thing kind of
Sure.
in the culture world.
Yeah, like you, I studied math. I understand mathematics and the infinite possibility of an infinite universe, that the probability that there is life on other planets is 100%, right? Like if we're dealing with numbers that approach affinity, the odds of there being life elsewhere approaches 100%. So that's a very simple way of saying yes. I also think there's life on other planets. I have a buddy that was like a ranger in the military, and he said they have technology, right? They can shoot projectiles so fast with what's called a railgun, a magnetic like impetus that can make projectiles go so fast that they can't find a projectile that will stand up to the maximum speed that this railgun can generate to make it actually an effective weapon. So they have already demonstrated some of this technology, this advanced style technology. But so now all they had to do is find material that will withstand those speeds. Like they have it in concept, they've used it. So I don't know, like what are they?
Well, have
distracting us with?
you heard anything of the Project Kona Blue?
Okay, that just came out today or something. I don't know. Like, tell me
Recently,
about it. What do you
yes.
got? Yeah, what do you got?
Well, like I said, I'm not going to do a deep dive on the whole project, but in a sense, was Kona Blue is a plan for the government to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technologies. So this was a project where this was supposedly going on. So whoever or wherever or whatever they were reverse engineering this technology from, or maybe remains to be seen. But the idea is that it's alien technology.
Right.
But it sounds, again, it's coming from the government. So like it was leaked. Like,
It was leaked. Yeah, look,
conveniently.
and then they're talking about donations from extraterrestrial life.
Kind of like it's kind of like a sex tape. So they leak it so they can get popularity. And this is what they do here. And they're just like, hey,
correct.
Let's leak this video out so we can get all the donations.
Sure, and they're talking about how they have recovery teams for when they get a donation. The Five Eyes team of Australia, New Zealand, United States, and Canada, and I think Great Britain, all in this together, where they have recovery teams that go pick up this technology that's been left. Arguably, it's a crashed vehicle. Arguably, who knows exactly what it is. It does feel kind of psyopish, but like Tucker,
it feels a lot psyopish.
Yeah, well, Tucker kind of went big into it.
He seems to try to bring in the spirituality of it. He kept kind of bouncing between spiritual and supernatural as kind of like adjectives of what he was describing. I don't think he was kind of like trying to force those terms into the discussion. He was just trying to use them so that people would understand what they were talking about when he was referencing whatever he was referencing. So I don't think, but he was clearly trying to, his belief, it seemed like, I think he genuinely believes this. I don't think he's just trying to shove some crazy theory down there. I think he actually believes that there are evil entities that have entered our dimension and have taken, whether or not it's, physical control of beings on the planet, but at least psychological control of beings on the planet. And if we just want to draw a parallel, I'll just say, like, I think those people are just compromised by Jeffrey Epstein, if you want to kind of go wherever. So like, whatever your definition of evil is, clearly it has infiltrated our government, our kind of like the tentacles that come from that and all of its workings. And we're not alone. Like it's a lot of major countries are not they're made up of not good people. You could otherwise call them evil. It's easy how you could see, okay, they're evil.
No, so look, and
I'm unreligious. Just, I don't know if we've never had this discussion here. Like I'm unreligious. Like I have been unreligious for a long time. I was the obnoxious atheist for probably a period of time in my life. It's this is not coming from any kind of like I don't know. I have my own views of whatever you want to call spiritual, supernatural, or the history of the world, or whatever.
Right.
But this is not coming from a religious pretense, anyway.
No, look. So I think that there's been an ongoing or increasing discussion about the spiritual nature of what's going on in the world, and that I've found ways of boiling it down to like increasing in poverty. Certain narcissistic personalities are attracted to power. They enjoy, sadism. They enjoy being in charge. They enjoy, like, on some level, hurting other people, and they really enjoy forcing people to do their will. So if that's evil, arguably, I'm also somewhat a-religious, but I do believe in spirituality. I do have some philosophical leanings towards a spiritual power. I do like discussions about whether evil exists, whether it's walking the face of the earth, what's going on. Alex Jones is big into it, and he's been right about a lot
It's
of
the
things,
Nephilim.
man. Yeah, the Nephilim are leaking their power into our society and causing this stuff. I don't know. Like, all right, so that's just
No, but the clown show that we get to experience on a daily basis just continues to open the doors for possibilities. Like, okay, well, clearly it could be anything at this point. Like, we are living in, what I want to say unprecedented times. It seems like if you can't laugh at it, like you would be pounding your head against the wall if you actually really like we're seriously trying to figure out how to solve problems. Like, I feel so bad for Thomas Massey because he literally is on a daily basis, like just banging his head against the wall every time he walks, and he just bangs his head like, oh, I could not do it. Like, there's no, like, I give him so much credit for putting up with whatever that, like, and excellent at it too. Like he almost relishes the idea that he's gonna like, all right, well, here I go, head first again. Let's see what happens. And then boom, he just like always seems to come out on top too, which is always great because he's sincere, first of all, and
He is
maybe
sincere, yeah.
And one thing that going back to the Tucker Rogan conversation that they were having, they were trying to how do you boil down whatever, and they kind of said, okay, well, how about we just boil it down to like, don't lie, right? Like, how about we start with just everybody not lie, tell the truth when you can tell the truth. If it's inconvenient, lie. Okay, it's better than it's the inconvenient truth is not as good as the lie. Don't lie. So give us the truth, no matter what kind of hurt or damage it's going to follow us. It's always better to move on from the truth than to try to live in a lie. So
arguably people who are in power don't agree with that because telling the truth
for sure
could cost them their power. The part, Shawn, and I want you to comment on this, the part that freaks me out the most is that there are not hundreds of millions of people like us, like our friends out in the audience, like our friends on WSL who just say, all of this looks insane and these people are bad. Like that they're 50-60% of the population, Shawn, picking a side in these crazy fights of made up stuff. Like that's the part that I don't understand. That's where I lose track of it all.
They're immersed in it, so they can't see it, right? So like if they're on one of the sides, they can't see it. But if you step away, and like I said, I kind of ping pong back and forth from side to side, so I kind of maybe thankfully got to some perspective that other people don't do when that doesn't happen. But it's I mentioned this before. Like I don't think most people really care what side they're on, or they care what side they're on only because it's not the other side, right? Like, but if you just kind of made a list of like, oh, these are all the left ideas, and then these are all the right ideas, you would be like, how is it that everybody on the left thinks this about this and this and this, and the right's always the exact opposite? Like, there's never any kind of like, oh, well, there's some kind of 50-50 here, and like, nope, it's always just all in or all out. Like, the issues are unrelated. They're completely unrelated.
And they come up with analogies that we're supposed to understand that they draw juxtapositions of things that are completely unrelated, and you're just like, well, that
listen, they look
doesn't make any sense.
They look for things to divide us, and then pass $100 billion to Ukraine and Israel war funding. That's the game. I mean, everybody sees it. I don't know what to do about it.
Brother.
Everybody sees it.
Well, I think a basic understanding of economics, right? That destruction of wealth isn't actually good for a society because that's what they're doing. They're using the broken windows fallacy on a massive scale, right? Where people are dying because they want to use the broken windows fallacy to grow economies and actually devalue our currency at the same time. Like that's what they're doing. They're growing GDP and they're devaluing our currency. That's my conspiracy theory, but people will not accept that growing GDP is not necessarily a good thing, that destruction of wealth is almost never a good thing, and that they're running a scam on us, right? So while they're stealing from the treasury, while they're looting from the treasury, that's what's happening. Do you see what I mean? Like people refuse to accept that because we're the ones that sound crazy.
Yeah,
but I don't know how. I don't know how that sounds crazy.
Listen, I mean, you're old enough to remember and the Fed chants at Ron Paul rallies, right? So there's an appetite for it. Like if it's explained in a way and shown in a way that it makes it tangible to somebody in real life, and no better way than to watch inflation under the last two presidents, created from basically infinite spending.
Infinite spending.
It's like
Trump blew up the treasury before Biden blew up the treasury.
Yeah, no, I know for sure. Yeah, no, like I said, again, going back to Thomas Massey. Massey's the only one who he at least made him vote on it.
He did. He made him come in. He was a stickler for rules, and that was good. And that's what he's doing right now, trying to use that system to fix that system, which is good luck with that. You know what I mean?
Listen, it's if Massey wasn't in the House right now, like it would. I mean, steamrolled things would have been things that the amount of bills that would it's hard to imagine the impact of not having Thomas Massey in the position that he's been in for the last 2 years.
And calling him out on Twitter. But we're coming up on another break. Thanks again to everyone out there watching the show. Thanks again to WSL. We will be right back. All right. We ran a little bit long, but only 15 seconds. I think I can fix that. I don't even
Fired.
think I got to fix it. I think that'll be
Fired.
Fired. They can't stand it when I edit the shows. I need Kevin back, man. I'm horrible at this stuff. Like it's so bad. I'm so awful at it. But yeah, I try. And the
Pay for
last show
effort.
went through, the one I did with Cody, and then they've got a backup one because the first one I sent it through with Queeter did not go through because I didn't edit it correctly. Hopefully, though, it'll work out. This one will work out because I'm getting better at it. I had a long break. All right, so my buddy Dave said they enjoy eating children's blood. Hillary's Red Shoe Club. Okay, all right. I don't know. They are demons. Read your
Hey,
Bible. Okay,
hey,
all right.
what was any of the audience seen Monsters Inc?
Yeah,
Have you seen Monsters Inc?
yeah.
What
Where
was
they're
the
eating
what
the
was the
children's dreams or whatever, right? Like
Oh,
that's
well,
what they're doing.
are you saying they were harvesting the energy of young children
Yeah,
to
yeah.
live longer? Well, weird.
It's strange parallel. Like yeah, sure. All right. I see what you're saying. They tell us what they're doing.
What?
Yeah.
It's
Oh
so
yeah,
weird to
guys, I
look at
do.
things after you've seen other things. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
A part of your subconscious, right, feels these things are possible, right? Like there's a reality, and maybe they are. Maybe I'm the one that's crazy here. Like you grow up with childhood terrors, you have fears, your perceptual reality takes them back because you start to read your situation and think the things that you imagine, the things that you hallucinate don't ever really come to fruition, right? So you're like, but that doesn't mean that spiritual side, that those imaginings may not have some basis in reality. I'm just saying your reality doesn't meet up with that. Other than blood-soaked monsters running the country, you know what I mean? Like lusting for war, warmongering psychopaths that use shoddy economic theory to whatever. You get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't
Preaching
want
to
to
the choir,
belabor
brother.
the point. Yeah. Cody, the fifth eye is Djibouti. It's not though. I that's a correction. Cody said it was Djibouti, which was hilarious, and I'm like, yeah, it is Djibouti, but it's not. It's actually New Zealand. It's New Zealand. Here, I got it. I pulled it up just to make sure. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Those are the members of the Five Eyes. They cooperate in intelligence matters pertaining to UFOs and UAPs and probably everything else, Like they probably use that as a cover to share lots and lots of other intel. I would imagine anyway. Kind of like
Sounds fair.
yeah. This right here. Wait, isn't How to Serve Humans? It was a cookbook. Do you remember that Twilight Zone, Sean? Are you remember old enough for that?
What was the premise of the show again?
Okay, so the aliens came to Earth and they decided that they were going to protect them from the tribal instincts of Earthlings, right? So they
Oh, I
built,
think I do kind of remember
yep,
this.
they kind of built force fields around all the countries. They disabled all the nuclear bombs, and they started taking people for free trips to their home planet, and they gave them a book, and the book they told them the title was How to Serve Man, and so like at the end of the show, the guy's wife decided to go to the other planet. The guy's like running up screaming, "It's a cookbook! It's a cookbook!" And by that point, we had given up all our means of self-defense, and we were just cattle for,
The
big-headed
the
aliens.
proverbial frog in the boiling pot.
Yeah, that's what we were. And it was great. I just did a meme on it where the guy yelling, "It's a cookbook," was a libertarian, and everybody else was just like the uniparty. You know what I mean? So it was very, very one of my more
Nice.
creative endeavors. It got a few
Nice.
likes. It
Nice.
didn't.
Nothing. You didn't generate enough cash on the Twitter X there from it to retire yet?
No, not yet.
No.
No, but I'd like to. That would be a nice way to go, man. Like, look, Sean, I work hard every day. Like, I would love to podcast. I would love to make money. I look back on my days of bartending and I'm like, at some point I took a wrong turn because I could still be bartending and probably like with the inflated dollars that people are throwing over the bar, I'd be making bank, brother.
I mean, so me, my bartender, my bar back split $1,276 for about 3.5, 4 hours worth of work.
GTFO. For real?
Yeah.
Oh, Frag, man, I'm doing it wrong. My God.
50th birthday party. Nothing even.
People tip well.
And I got one of the best like 80s cover band. They played at the place. So like I just hung out, enjoyed myself. They were super low key. It was a 50th birthday party, so there were a bunch of people my age.
Yeah. And having some drinks and being cool and leaving big tips. That's wild.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was a really good party, whatever, all that good stuff, but they were very generous. It was open bar, so
and you have a good venue and all of those things, right? Like, so
people were having a good time.
The rail line, right, in Syracuse? Yeah.
There's no but
check it out.
It's just rail line.
Oh, just rail line, not the rail line?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
Nobody will ever correct you except me, but it's technically there is no but.
Is Rosie still in business up there?
No.
No, really?
I don't think so.
Oh my God.
I mean, the building's still there.
Right. That's where I worked, one of the places I worked. I used to go in as a 21-year-old guy, make $200 on a Friday night, plus get paid, some small amount of cash money or not cash money. No, I had a paycheck. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, no, that was wild times, man.
Yeah. Got an EDM party tomorrow, Thursday.
What's EDM?
Electric dance music.
Oh, wow. Are you working that, or can you just make other people work it?
I'll have a large staff there that night because it's a pretty crazy time.
All right, so for the next segment, Shawn, I kind of want to hit you with a couple of news stories and see how you feel them. What do you think about that?
Have at it.
All right.
I do have one more. What I just thought was the best part of the Rogan Tucker thing. I could do that here if you wanted to talk about it now, but
no, let's do it. Let's do it for the radio show.
Okay.
All right. We'll go back in 4 seconds. All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I am the host, not the conspiracy theorist. It's me, Tim O'Connor, the Freedom Variant. Kevin's been a little bit under the weather. He's healing up nicely. He could still use kind thoughts, kind words, and prayers if you're so inclined. But he's going to be back next week. We've got an interview with Mike Terma on Monday at 7. He's a libertarian candidate for president. But joining me tonight, Shawn Hannon. Shawn, we've been talking about Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. You may have a little bit more.
Yeah,
share with the folks.
I mean, we covered most of the stuff that I found interesting from the interview. I mean, obviously it's two, media Goliaths colliding. And so just to have their takes going back and forth is just kind of entertaining in general. And the fact that they covered such a crazy array of topics was funny on top of that too.
They were
and like I said, we mentioned UFOs, we mentioned Nixon. But Tucker's just like Mike Pompeo's a criminal and needs to be in jail. Like, I mean, he basically,
he popped off about
literally just calling out people. Did you see the whole episode?
I listened to it in my car, and so sometimes
certain
things fade in and out. Like,
so
I don't listen to some.
Did you recall the breakdown of the Alex Jones rant?
Okay, yeah, that's why I mentioned Alex Jones earlier.
I had never heard that rant before, but tell me it wasn't the most like off the cuff, coherent. Like there wasn't an whatever. Like he literally just rattled off like 5 paragraphs in a row, and you could watch Rogan and Tucker just stare at each other, like some of the comments and some of the moments of the speech, and you could tell that it wasn't like it didn't come across. Listen, if it was scripted, he's excellent. Because it didn't come across that way. It came across of like, because they were kind of pushing him on something, and they were like, "All right, you want something?" He's like, "I'll give you something." And then he just kind of went in. It wrapped around AI, and this was like 7 years ago, I think, or something.
Correct.
And so it was clairvoyancy kind of a rant where, how the hell does Alex Jones know this kind of shit? Sorry, again here, but like, how it seemed. Like you could have read that off, today, and you'd be like, "That's exactly what's happening."
It was pretty wild. I actually wanna go back and listen to it again. Tucker was kinda giving Alex Jones some credit for being, like, channeling some wild information
Right.
because they made reference to the fact that he called
Yeah,
9/11, like, he
right.
called it,
He
you know?
almost intimated that Alex Jones was a prophet.
He I don't know if it almost is the right word, like, he intimated that
I'm
Alex
just saying,
Jones
right?
is
Yeah.
is a prophet, right? And first of all, that's gonna freak people out, but Alex Jones has nailed some things, and like you said, when they played that speech, alright, and I did hear it, and it did have an impact, it was kinda terrifying, right? Like, you know, evil leaking through from the 4th dimension to the 3rd dimension up to the 2nd dimension, like, it was just and like you said, if it wasn't scripted, if it was scripted, the dude's an absolute genius and 100% incredible, right? Like, are you
Yeah.
still there? We
I'm
lost you.
here. I lost
Okay,
my camera. I'm sorry.
that's all right. Don't worry about it. So like you said, it was pretty wild. I do want to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, it was at that moment in the episode, I was like, Alex Jones just won this episode, and he wasn't even on it, right? Like it was like he was. It was so good though. And then literally the funniest thing was, they had started the episode talking about UFOs and UAPs or whatever, and
correct.
then like and it's funny. You go, I think it's like at the 54-minute mark. I sent it to my co-host. And started laughing because, they were making small talk, whatever, talking about, happiness of teens. And Tucker asks, he's like, do you think an Amish teen is happier than an American teen? And, a little back and forth goes back. And then Joe Rogan drops the Amish have a very low rate of autism. And then I was like, let the games begin here. Like they literally just went into like a little bit of a conversation about, the whole safe and effective nature of vaccines. So they covered a lot of stuff. And I thought it was like they should do it more. Like there should just be the clash of ideas more.
Could you imagine those two combining on a podcast, like say once a month or something
But
like that? That
but
would
and,
be
you know,
wild.
and they both brought this up, and I think this is the biggest reason why they should have talked about all those crazy things is because people should be allowed to talk about crazy things. Like that should just be the default position. It's like, hey, let's talk this out. Let me look like an idiot. Tell me why I'm an idiot, right? And
Yeah.
so let people talk it out, because if you
Yeah.
just censor them, you get what happened in COVID, and you get a bunch of bad information or good information being suppressed and bad information being left to run wild. And I think that's what we experienced in 2020. So the idea behind all of those crazy topics on that show, I think, is the most important thing. The whole aspect of the show was that they were actually allowed to talk about those topics, right? Like that was the thing. It was to talk about JFK, whether or not the CIA is involved, talking about Nixon, not as just I'm not a crook. There's other conversations to be had that don't seem to be allowed in today's political discourse.
Yeah, so look, I'll be honest with you, right? There's a chilling
We
effect
didn't even talk
knowing
about
that
evolution,
right, right. Knowing that
which
this
I
is
don't believe in, by the way.
gonna go out on the radio, that's gonna go out on, our YouTube channel, on Twitter, on Facebook. When we start talking about these things, a little piece of me gets I'm not gonna lie, right? Some of my conversation is shaped by the things that I'm afraid of, right? I enjoy doing this. I'm afraid of being censored. I'm afraid of losing a platform. I'm afraid of whatever it is that might happen if we explore some of these more radical ideas that I think that we should be able to explore. The conversation about the Amish is a perfect one. Another one is George Santos. Are you familiar with George Santos at all?
Oh, yeah, I like George.
I was a big fan, man. I was advocating for him on the show. I can't believe he actually got kicked out. He was Kevin or Sean. Do you see that?
I don't take offense.
Good. Thank
Kevin's
you.
a good man.
Kevin is a good man. Santos ends his congressional bid for New York's first district. Sean,
Oh, I saw he was running as an independent, right?
yeah, he was actually running again. He was going to go into the Republican primary, I think, and decided. I think yesterday, he decided to withdraw, even though he'd already been expelled from the House of Representatives. And look, I thought George Santos was a perfect example of a guy that was exactly what every politician was, but just got caught, right? Because he's like, "Hey, look, I'm a gay Republican," like, so he got a bunch of votes, and it was all virtue signal. It was all hilarious, and he kind of did some money scamming. So I guess that's where they
Yeah, like I don't think he's like a credible person. Like I wouldn't want him like, managing my business or anything.
no,
Like
but
I'm not
in
even
the House
what
of
I think what he
Representatives is
did,
fine.
what he did was show that it's just a clown show. Like he literally
It was
lied his
great.
way to Congress.
Yeah, it was
It's the best. It's one of the
honestly,
best things. It's one of the best
it was
stories ever.
it was absolutely beautiful, man. I
Yeah.
was really like, I just thought it was hilarious, like
Yeah. No, like I
just
said, I think it was a way, it was like a way of looking like, oh, look, this whole thing is just literally just fake. Like this guy lied his way to a nomination, to a congressional seat. It's the best.
yeah. Hey, did you hear about uh Joe Biden's uncle, Bozy?
Uh, so yes, I guess like that's I don't have a hot take on this. Like I know he kind of fumbled something again with his words, but like it's so easy to make fun of this old man that. But yeah,
You almost feel
apparently
bad
he's
now at this
yeah.
point, right? Like this guy's up there talking gibberish. He
I
wants
mean,
to have
also
an effective story. So he says his uncle, who used to fly reconnaissance planes over New Guinea, was shot down and eaten by cannibals. Like
yeah, I
that's the
think
basic statement he made. It's completely false. It's totally nonsense. His uncle was a passenger, like a cartographer, map guy. He got shot down over the ocean. They didn't find his body, but it was not because of cannibals. Like, where in the world does this guy come from?
as somebody who's played a lot of fantasy football in his days and used the team name of Hannon's Cannibals, I feel I should be offended by and felt a little bit hurt by this appropriation of cannibals
All
and
right.
talking down on cannibals.
Yeah, well, cultural appropriation is something that falls under the guise of identity politics. And so, look, I've said it before on the show, identity politics is absolute brain cancer, bro. It is destroying this thing. It goes back to our earlier conversation of things that people fall for to keep us divided and make them invest in narratives that if they thought for 1 second, they would probably reject. Good news, Australia is banning the export of sheep. Have you heard about this?
No, it sounds like fake news.
Okay, well, it's actually, I hate to say it, right? But it's real news, okay? Now, Australia, a major sheep exporter in the country. Like sheep are very successful. They thrive in Australia. It's a major agricultural crop. In the name of climate change, Australia has banned exporting sheep.
Seems like a smart move.
Does it though? I mean, people, people seem to like sheep. They eat them, they use them for wool. There's lots of like, so now I don't
So
know.
you're saying they're just hoarding the sheep in Australia?
Yeah, but basically they're destroying what they're doing is destroying a farmer's revenue stream.
Yeah.
Okay, that farmers in Australia are making a lot of money off of exporting sheep, and they're destroying that revenue stream. Millions
I
of
mean, I don't
sheep
know
are
if you
coming.
noticed this, Mr. O'Connor, but there seems to be a rash of governments trying to destroy economies around the world.
It's it
So, I mean, if the sheep are the way to destroy the economy, then let it be the sheep. If it's eggs, let it be eggs.
let it be let's just let them keep going in the way that they're going.
I like
It's
how Tucker always
wild to
throws
me.
in the food processing plants into his discussions.
He's
I,
he's
he's
he was
he's
wild.
the best. Like I thought I was really good at just being able to throw little snide remarks in at the end of sentences to kind of like just throw a little dig in it. He is the master. He is the master. Like
He
he is self-admitted. He says he's an ass a-hole. And
Yeah,
yeah,
he's proud of it. I think I've
I
got that
listen, I
personality flaw or
no,
strength.
it's definitely a personality flaw for me. I definitely can be an a-hole. And so I understand I come from, but like I actually envy his ability to do it better than me though too.
Yeah,
Because I used to like call myself charmingly condescending, but
yeah.
like it's he's the master.
Look, I see flaws in what other people are saying, and like if we're having a couple drinks, I I lambaste people, like, and I make them laugh about it, and I make myself laugh about it, and then when they get me, I just enjoy it, man. Like that's I know what Tucker's was talking about there. That is a facet of my diamond-like personality. I'm sure it's a facet of your look. You're attracted to many similar things. You and I have similar interests, like the fact that you're a bartender that was a bartender. We've participated in the same things. And guys, luckily we're coming up on the end of the show. I've got one more subject to talk about. But first, let's do a shout out to Kevin Lockhart, who is out WYSL's way. He's 1 week into the petition season, and he's gathered 250 signatures to be nominated as an independent county clerk. Congratulations, Kevin. Good job with that. Keep up the good work. Let's see. Our friend Patricia out there in YouTube world, clowns to the left, jokers to the right. And here we are stuck in the middle, wondering exactly what's going on. I did have one more conversation that I wanted to have with Shawn before the end of the show, because there's like a back and forth going on between Iran and Israel, where Israel in Damascus attacked an embassy of Iran's and killed some generals. Iran had to answer and launched a bunch of like drones and stuff like that. Not a very meaningful attack, but something happened there. And I was going to try to get Shawn's opinion on that. But now, one more area of concern: Hezbollah has stepped up its game and is now also launching drones into Israel. And I think it's something that we as libertarians got to keep an eye on, because that's one of the problems that we see with what's going on in the Middle East and all of the things that we get concerned about. But on that note, guys, to the WYSL audience, it's Tim O'Connor, the Freedom Variant. I was joined for an entire hour with Shawn Hannon, the former vice chair of the Onondaga Libertarian Party. And again, guys, let's keep Kevin in our thoughts and prayers. He's recovering nicely. But by all means, a few kind words could go a long way. And one last thing: next Monday at 7 o'clock, live on the interwebs, and it will eventually be broadcast on WSL as a segment of the show, we're going to be interviewing LP presidential candidate Mike Termott. Mike is a former police officer. Mike is a dedicated libertarian. I think that occasionally libertarians and police officers need to find some common ground, and I think Mike's a great guy for that. Guys, WSL audience, I want to thank you all for being here. We'll catch you again next week. Anyways, guys, out there in the YouTube world and the WSL people aren't here anymore. Thank you, Shelly. I lost Shawn somewhere along the ways, as you guys probably out there realize. I don't know what happened to him. We've got El Gato. Shawn, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, you're back in business, brother.
I'm backstage though, so
I brought you.
Okay. Oh,
you're back on
okay.
stage. I didn't realize I could bring you on stage and have you comment there. I don't know what so I had to vamp for a minute and a half there.
No, you're good. I was watching you.
Well, it caught me by surprise, so I wasn't really ready for it. But
like I said, I don't know if I don't want to. I feel like if I restart, it'll work, but obviously I don't want to restart and whatever because my camera's working. But whatever.
Yeah, let's see what. Why would they want us overworked, underfed, sick, and disconnected? Patricia, it feels like it's a design plan. They're constantly offering us things to argue over, recycling narratives, if you will, that they know reach into our psyche and make us just a little bit crazy. Like if you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion, right? So every week or every month, they go through a cycle of bringing up the abortion thing. They get some mouthpiece or some propagandist to start yammering about it. And then somebody on the other side starts yammering about it. And before we know it, we're at each other's throats. And I'm just like, why does it have to be that way? What do you think about that, Shawn? Why would they want us overworked, underfed, sick, and disconnected?
Well, then you don't have time to actually figure out what the hell's doing all that to you, I guess.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, which sounds, again, more evil. It seems like there's a concerted effort to just, make lives miserable.
Loot the
you
treasury,
wonder
make
why.
themselves rich, raise money off of weird opinions, keep people fighting, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
All right. Our friend
I
John
think that they're,
Barron out there in
if
Facebook.
we're focused on each other, we're not focused on them. That's all.
That's a pretty good point, right? John Barron out there, let's stop exporting American money to other countries. Yeah, that would be nice. Shawn, you're probably familiar with the broken windows fallacy. You're probably familiar with Keynesian economics. If
Yeah,
you're,
I couldn't recite it, but yeah, I'm familiar with the idea that we don't need to dig holes and fill them back in to stimulate the economy.
no, it's like, hey, go smash somebody's window out, and then that
Yeah.
guy's got to go buy a window, right? And that stimulates the window.
That's what I'm saying.
maker.
Like you can do the same thing as go dig holes, right? You could hire a bunch of people to go dig holes, and now you've stimulated the economy. Go dig holes and fill them back in. Like, okay, well,
You could,
what? There's no benefit to society from a broken window or a bunch of filled in holes.
right? And they destroy wealth, right?
Yeah, and then on a grand scale is, oh well, the U.S. economy bounced back after World War II. Like, oh, okay.
Well,
That's like the ultimate broken window fallacy.
And so then, not that long after, right? Like 40 years later, we've just been in a forever war. Every time we turn around, we're in some sort of military conflict with massive expenditures and subsequent GDP growth. Like honestly, we've destroyed on some level the manufacturing base in the United States. One of our major manufacturers is the defense industry, right? And there's the multiplier effect, or I don't know if you're familiar with the basic premise that for every good manufacturing job, 5 local community jobs are generated or created, and then they in turn generate other jobs. That's like a premise of Keynesian economics, and it's a premise of like, fine if that's true, but why did we destroy almost all the other manufacturing in the United States? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we are nowhere near where we were in the 50s and 60s in our heyday.
Correct.
I'm not sure that manufacturing is always going to be the, an endless generator of economic activity, because I just don't know, like if, these 3D printers and whatnot, like this stuff's going to be robotic and automated, that it's not really going to be a source of it's not going to be a source of jobs anymore. Manufacturing, I think, for the most part.
Well, arguably, right, as I don't know, I went into Taco Bell the other night, and back when like they started melting down the currency and started forcing increases into the minimum wage, legislating them in, and a rapid increase at a pace that we hadn't seen before. I'm like, there's going to be basically 2 people like throwing things into a bucket, and that bucket is then going to like robotically assemble tacos and stuff like that. You're not even going to have, you're going to have kiosks and 2 people working, and basically one guy's going to be shoving stuff out through the window and one guy's going to be putting stuff on shelves for people to pick up. Literally at the Taco Bell in Oneonta, that is what it looks like. Like they have kiosks, 2 people making food and shuffling it over to people, and basically they're just filling bins and stuff's getting assembled by.
I mean, I blame Chili's. I blame Chili's for bringing those order menus to the restaurant. You can just order right at the restaurant. So like all of a sudden they just started, that was the breakdown. All of a sudden they're like, okay, we can just automate this whole thing. We don't even need people to take orders. They'll just push the buttons themselves.
That's right.
Look at Sonic.
Look at Walmart, like now, do the Walmarts in Syracuse have a massive amount of self-checkouts? You don't go there?
I don't know. I haven't been to Walmart in so long.
I don't blame you. It's kind of an awkward place.
I mean, I have other options. That's all. So,
yeah. You could get like Instacart, right? Do you do Instacart?
I briefly during COVID, just because I didn't want to have to deal with the mask Nazis.
Oh my God, that was.
I mean, listen. I was unbothered. I mean, I had, nobody ever came up to me and said put on a mask ever. So, and I did not wear one for a long time.
Right.
I mean, I say for a long time. I said I didn't wear one ever.
Yeah.
I wore it like 3 times.
Yeah, weirdly enough, for me, when I went into a store, I felt obliged to respect the property owner's wishes and wear a mask. I certainly did not take the threat of not wearing a mask seriously. Like there was no real fear for me about that. And there were plenty of times when I walked into a store without a mask just to see what they would say. Um, and of course, a couple times I got yelled at. So whatever,
Well, the best for me was when they tried to give me. They weren't going to let me vote because I didn't have my mask on.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, oh, really? Like this is not how this is going to go down.
That's it. That is not going to be the way this gets played.
I walk in, the dude who's like, the first person I get that I give you a ticket or whatever. This dude's mask's around his chin. There's 3 people at the table.
Right.
And then the person 3 down from the table is like, sir, you got to put a mask on, and slides a box of masks at me. And as I'm looking at I look right back at the dude, the first dude. He then pulls his mask. He's like, oh, yeah, you got to put a mask on, sir. And I'm like, I don't need a mask. I just slide it right back. Now, the guy had already given me the ticket, so I just moved to the next table. And the lady, she was the only one who didn't say anything to me. So I just gave her the ticket, and she gave me the thing. I voted, and on my way. They were like, can I get your name? And I yelled my name. I say yelled, but I made sure that my voice projected loud enough that the whole gymnasium could hear my name. So that there was no confusion about what was going on at this point. So,
right. That's funny.
People, lizard people.
So so economic speaking, I have an answer to this, but I want to ask you, our friend Patricia asks, the amount of homeless keep growing. Empty buildings are everywhere. And I know you're in Syracuse, and the last time I was through there are plenty. Empty buildings. So what is going on? Why are there more homeless than ever and more empty?
Syracuse is one of the poorest cities in the world, or poorest cities in the country. Child poverty, again, some of the worst in the country. So there's not a lot going on in Syracuse. They're trying to change all that with some economic activities that are supposedly on the future here. But I don't have an answer for it. We just throw some money at it, like California does.
Yeah. They create programs to serve homelessness. They have disincentivized, I don't know. I get into this issue of
listen, they destroyed all the churches, and so charity went away, right? So again, I'm unreligious, but
well, I lost audio for Shawn. I'm not sure what kind of issues he's having. My thoughts always are when I go down the homeless wormhole, and how it keeps increasing. The government, are you back?
I'm back. I don't know what happened. I got muted.
Not by me.
I think.
And you were sounding like you were in a tin can, and now you sound good again. So I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah. But anyways, I go down this wormhole of homelessness when I look at zoning as an issue, and I look at the fact that tenants' rights have gotten so drastically high that people won't rent out a room. And then I look at in our local area zoning, people start fixing up a house, and the zoning says, well, you can't rent it out to baseball people, and then that activity stops. So I think that some level we're able to blame the government for what we're seeing as this increase in homelessness, this increase in empty buildings. And yet the answer now, Shawn, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if they're going to do this in Syracuse, but the government's going directly into private-public partnerships and building. They're removing zoning restrictions, and they're building all sorts of residential structures near train stations all over the state. Are they doing that up there?
No, only because the train station is not in a place where they can. I mean, there's one, I guess, there's on the other side of it near the train station. I guess maybe there is one complex going there. Yep. I think that's more high-end apartments, though. I don't think it's any kind of low-end subsidized housing. I think it's, I don't say luxury condos, but something more in that, on the scale of, tents to luxury condos. It's closer to luxury condos.
Okay. That's interesting.
I mean, listen, there's fights the town of Cicero here passed a bill or an ordinance, I guess, for their town. So that would limit the amount of construction for apartments and stuff. So, and it's because a bunch of people came out and said, we don't want. So are you familiar with Micron Technologies?
Yeah. I was going to ask you how that project is going.
Well, I mean, listen, it's going, I guess, but the first chip's not scheduled to be off the line for like 25 years. So like, I don't know.
Oh, really? Is it that long?
Yeah, it's not going to be like around the corner. Like all of a sudden, here's there's 50,000 jobs coming. Okay, like in like 2040. So like,
Wow.
yeah, literally it's 20 plus years for the first chip to be rolled off the line there. So it's a long way away. That doesn't stop them from building the fabrication centers or whatever. Like they have to kind of, it takes a while to do this.
Sure.
And Biden's going to be in Syracuse tomorrow.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, right near.
You're going to go see him?
Right near my. I could probably. I mean, they probably won't let me up there. But if I went to my parking lot, if I went to work tomorrow, I would be within, well, a good rotator cuff throw of a baseball from Joe Biden.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
No,
that would be bad.
That would be a waste.
Yeah,
because I would get hurt.
Right, but you'd throw the ball? Nah, you wouldn't.
Yeah, no. He's there's a museum, and the reason I brought this up is because he's coming here to announce the Micron was awarded $6 billion from the CHIPS whatever act.
Okay, great.
And so I don't have a take whether or not, I mean, I would say a large swath of the community just is like, okay, they just don't believe it, that it's ever going to happen. I understand their hesitancy to kind of get all in and jump on board, whatever. And I understand the local officials being like, okay, well, we can't just like give in. I'm like, if they keep saying they're coming, we should prepare as if they're coming.
Right.
But there's like, there's stuff like, and I'm no tree hugger. I mean, maybe at one point I was in my life, but like, there's talking about like each one of these fabrication centers is going to use the amount of water the entire city of Syracuse uses on a daily basis, like each factory. So like there's a lot of unknowns in the amount, and who's going to like, there's got to be a whole water infrastructure built up around this plant that is not in place yet, and who's paying for that is still up for discussion. The community doesn't want to have to pay for that.
Sure.
All of our industrial development agencies here locally obviously are trying to give away tax breaks to companion corporations and companies that would come here to help assist the manufacturing of said chips. But
okay,
yeah,
that's one of the things that it's always drive me crazy when credit farmers collect money from the government and local businesses pay the bills, right? Like, so you have businesses in Syracuse and they want to bring in a new business, so they're going to tax the local businesses to give money to the big new business that, if I understand correctly, and honestly, my mind was kind of boggled when you said the first chip's probably not going to roll out of there for another 15 years.
at least 15, I mean, I think they actually predict 20. So, like, it's not like I'm not even talking about like hyperbole. I think that's like,
all right, that's wild.
all this infrastructure in ahead of time.
That's just wild. And then what if they just decide not to build it? And what if the chips become obsolete? What if their plan, their game plan, their business plan becomes obsolete in 15 years?
I hope Micron is building graphene transistors, because that's where all of processing is, I feel like, is going to end up here within the next 5-10 years. So hopefully they're doing graphene transistors, because they seem to be the best transistors on the market, or will be eventually, if not, whatever. So,
sounds like a boondoggle, Shawn. That's what I just want to say.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, if somebody says, if Micron says, "Hey, I want to come to your town," obviously you listen, right? And so, does that mean they're coming? Again, I don't think anybody really knows. I understand that the local officials have to play the they're coming game, because if they play they're not coming game and they come, they're not going to be unprepared. They're going to be ill prepared, and it's not going to work. So you got to prepare for it. Like, I get it, but I also understand that most people just don't think it's going to happen, because there's been a lot of things promised in this community, and tax breaks given to other places and things that have never materialized. And this is seemingly just in a pattern of disappointments amongst local, at least potential projects here. I mean, there's, I'm not trying to bash Syracuse. I like Syracuse. I've lived pretty much my whole life here. So it definitely has its upsides. I just don't know. It's hard to predict the outcome. Like, I mean, it's so far away, and so much has to happen between now and then for it to become a reality.
Wow. Yeah, and when they talk about it, they talk about it like it's right around the corner. You know, their
Oh yeah, no,
news announcements and
yeah,
stuff like that are just like, this is going to be happening. We're going to be bringing 50,000 jobs to the Syracuse. And then they changed that number several times in several releases. Like
that includes
right
our
before the election, it was
job. Right.
50,000. Right after the election, it was 15,000. It was wild,
I'll let
you
you know.
know?
I'll report back what Joe Biden says tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. That'd be cool. So look, we've been going for about an hour and a half, and that's about my limit because I got to go to bed. I gotta go. I don't get to sleep in and then go bartend at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and make like
I don't have to do anything. I don't have
$300.
to do anything tomorrow.
Man, that's such bullshit.
I work like 30 hours a week max.
Oh my God. You're killing me, Francis. You're killing me, man. I drive an hour and a half to work. I work for 8 or 9 hours. I drive an hour and a half home. I do actually have a pretty cool job though. So
Yeah. Do
and,
you
and
have uh is it a job where you get to kind of stare at the walks of life like my job? Every single day I get to kind of evaluate a different swath of life at these parties because our parties are such a wide range of
right.
attendees,
Yeah.
which is much different than the country club gig that I had right before this, where I basically had the same 300 dudes, 300
Right.
regular, 62-year-old dudes coming in every single time. So um, it's a I will say, and this we can end on this, the being or having access to such a wide range of people, it was I could tell that people were over COVID before most people knew that they were over COVID. Like you could see the behaviors,
Changing.
and yeah, you could just see it. And it wasn't nobody was acting out of fear. Everybody was acting out of what is everybody else doing, right? So
Right. Right.
there was no like, oh no, I'm gonna get sick ever. Like there was never any of that. It was only what is everybody else doing, and can I get away with not doing it? How many
Yeah.
people are doing it? Can I not do it? Like whatever. And so like, and as somebody who we didn't enforce the mask mandate for any of our staffs, and we had plenty of requests from hosts to ask us to mask staff, and we declined every single time.
Just
And
said no.
we just said no, we're not doing it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So props to the owner. I mean, he's the one who that was his decision. So um, you know, I was nice to be able to follow through with it. And my staff wasn't like belligerent about it. They would have done it probably, but I'm like, we're
Right.
not doing it. So like Rob says, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. So we didn't do it. But it was we helped allow some of those parties to kind of end up not being so
Rigid.
messed up. Yeah, I think we kind of we were like a tacit response. Like, and listen, sometimes like the caterer would mask up and the bartenders wouldn't. Like it was like because they asked, we don't have our own catering, so we always have outdoor catering. So sometimes they would ask us and the caterers. The caterers would show up masks, and we didn't. Again, this is not trying to sound judgmental at all. Like it was a crazy time, and I don't have any ill will towards anybody or any like what we just
Right.
did our thing.
Yeah.
We kind of moved through that crazy time as best we could. It worked out for the most part. Obviously we had to shut down for a year, which is not great. But like when we reopened, we were able to operate without too much craziness, I guess. So that was beneficial.
It sounds like you handled it well.
There was a time where I was like, okay, I guess I'm not bartending anymore because there's no way I'm going to wear a mask all day bartending. I guess I'll tighten up. I'll tighten up my resume and move on to something else. But then I got saved. So
Yeah, no, I build things. I manage things. I'm a foreman on a job. I do some project management.
you pick things up and you put them down.
Yeah, but it's complicated. It's fun. It's a challenge. I really enjoy it. So there are, I don't miss bartending that much. I did. I did it for years, man, and I did love it. I really did.
I couldn't do the 2 a.m. bartending thing. Like what I got going on now is ideal.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we'll end on this note. Our friend Patricia Blanchard out there in YouTube land. Do you remember Patty Reagan told the story that Ron thought he was in a long movie about being president? She feels like that's probably where Joe Biden is at. What do you think, man? I think the dude's lost his mind.
He's definitely lost his mind.
It's unfair. I don't like it.
I mean, listen, he's probably more harmless now than he was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Harmless as an individual, but he's not running the show, so it doesn't like whoever's surrounding him is running the show. That his, if he was president in like 1988 or whatever he was when he ran and left the thing, like that would have been like the worst Joe Biden ever. Like I said, he's running nothing, so like it's hard to blame him for any. I mean, I've said this on my show for well over a year. I'm like, they are going to cram everything they possibly can in under his reign, and then if it doesn't work, they were like, "Oh, well, that was Crazy Joe." Blame it on him. And
no,
then
you're right. You're
right.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, they can try everything. I try everything, and they're just like, "Oh, what are you? Don't fucking know."
Yeah, yeah. No, it's awful, brother. It's just awful.
Yeah. As long as you know it's awful, and then you can just laugh at the high points and laugh at some of the stuff. As long as you don't get taken out by intelligence, I guess, as long as you get to wake up every day, it's a good day.
I'm hoping I wake up tomorrow. Anyways, man. Look, thank you for joining me tonight on short notice. Thanks for filling in for Kevin.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Next time it won't happen.
Yeah, no, and there will be a next time, man. Like this was fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
Check out Shawn's podcast. Check out him and his
every Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, friend him up on Facebook. He'll get you an invite. It goes out on Rumble. It's sports, clicks, and politics. And if you want to find it on Rumble, all you got to do is search the SCAPP, and that's what comes up. So, and you'll see it's got 157, 158 episodes on Rumble. So, check him out. It's fun. It's a great listen. Ben and Shawn together are a compelling, duo. And look, they're not pigeonholed into news, right? They talk about sports and stuff like that. So it adds a layer of pace to the show that I find enjoyable.
Talking because we're not like sports, like analysts breaking down like game footage or anything.
Right.
We like talking about like some of the social impacts of sports. If there's some great play, like we talked about Scotty Scheffler this week, who's won like 4 of his last 5 tournaments, which just hasn't been done since Tiger, kind of thing. So
yeah,
we pick and choose our moments about sports. We had talked about removing sports, but like I don't think I could just talk about straight news for an hour and not just want to kill myself. So like I have to at least have some outlet where I would say mindless, but it's not so serious, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, and that's I try to, at least on this show, move things into a funnier direction. But yeah, it does get I get it. I get what you're saying. But I enjoy your show. I hope everybody else will check you out. I think alternative media is a way forward, and I think guys like you and Ben, me and Kevin, Larry Sharp, doing this, offering up our views, taking the time. Even that group of Twitter guys I hung out with last week, like perhaps that's a bridge to the rest of the reactive world, that where people think they're anti-establishment, but really all they're doing is just waiting for their favorite tyrants to take over and give them the same crap that they've been getting. Period. So, brother,
I'll be interested in monitoring how the MAGA crew kind of weighs in eventually on this Ukraine stuff, because they've been pretty silent for a couple of days here since this vote, and it turns out that Trump kind of supported this whole thing.
Oh my God!
You don't see any of the typical, let's not one more penny to Ukraine. Also, the MAGA group, like they're silent. So, and we're just seeing how this all plays out.
It would be nice to see a divestiture, like to say, nope, that's not what we wanted. We're moving on. That'd
be fun. All right, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Take care.